Some babies are born to make everyone happy. There are also Danny Bonaduce must learn to survive in laughter. On TV, the bright, humorous, red-haired child was the center of the Partridge family and an emblem of childhood in America. But beneath their dazzling eyes and familiar smile were long, terrifying evenings when his drunken father unleashed his wrath with his fists, so the film crew had to hide him at home. Studio lighting, others, perceived to be famous, became the only refuge in a childhood full off with force. Danny Bonaduce grew up to face challenges, not glory. American favorite child star became junkie, homeless wanderer, arrested, and radio survivor. Him life has been a lengthy trek between light and darkness. More than he remains Hollywood's contradiction 50 years later. The man who made the world laugh but lost his childhood. What happens when a child is forced to grow up in the spotlight and spends his life attempting recover his lost childhood? Once the lights were out, Danny he became a little, frightened youngster in a house full of dread and alcohol odor. He was born 1959 in Philadelphia and appeared to be a Hollywood family. Joseph Bonaduce, his father, wrote great films. The Andy Griffith Show, Dick Van Dyke Show, That Girl, and Ghost, Mrs. Muir. Betty, his mother, was calm and regimented but believed in order and perfection. In appearance, Danny was middle-class to educated family with TV scripts and studio lighting. But in reality was a place of shouting, violence, and terror. Joseph, though talented, Bonaduce was obstinate, cruel, and short-tempered. While intoxicated, he was another suspicious, harsh, and rage-prone. Danny subsequently recounted that the family would freeze when the typewriter stopped. When feet-clacking stopped, the storm was coming. No one dared predict who will be targeted that night. Mother, siblings, or red-haired boy he hid in his chamber. Danny recalled, "My father didn't hit. I was frightened he would kill me every day. Their home was like a prison, battlefield. Shouting drowned out the TV, and even the smallest error may result in punishment." Danny spoke back at 10 and was booted out of the home midway that a frigid Pennsylvania winter forced his mother to sleep on the porch. Once her husband returned, she surreptitiously brought him inside out of terror. After passing out, Danny realized that love in that house ironically, existing solely in silence while terror appeared daily. He got his first Hollywood job from the man who hurt him at T7 or 8, Joseph. Bonaduce accompanied his son Danny to an audition on television. Bright, humorous, quick-witted, and charming, he became a phenomenon. He was loved by adults and trusted by directors. But no one realized that every day of filming was followed by a night of terror at home. Danny remarked, at 10, Danny said, "I loved being on set because there nobody hit me." Mischievous red-haired Bonaduce became legend. The youngest Partridge son, Danny, played guitar in 1970. The tiny musical sitcom featuring a fake family band was unexpected in 1974 ABC show to become big. That year, the song IE's co-star David Cassidy's Think I Love You topped the charts. The child who played Danny beat the Beatles on Billboard Hot 100. Partridge represented American childhood. Quick-witted, cheeky, always with a funny line. Fame arrived too fast as the tragedy deepened. Joseph Bonaduce, the father, he became resentful and bitter after entering Hollywood, couldn't stand that his son was being praised nationwide while he, a veteran screenwriter, was fading. The production crew intervened once the violence intensified. After screaming at and threatening Danny during filming, he was expelled. Once the studio became the boy's home. Veteran Shirley Jones, the series' mother actress, cared for Danny like her own child first. People loved the smart child who lived between light and darkness. Dave Madden, the band's manager Ruben Consincade, regularly took Danny to live with him so the youngster could avoid home beatings during summer breaks. In Madden's tiny beach bungalow inn, Danny felt at home in Malibu for the first time. The Partridge family set was his lone sanctuary, a beautiful wonderland. Danny might eat there, sheltered by warm, planned laughter, sleep, and talk like a child. One wrong word at home could shouting or blows. The audience saw a bright, confident, hilarious boy. The play ended with a fearful toddler trying to smile to avoid crying, spanning 4 seasons, receiving Emmy and Golden Globe nominations, and becoming Danny saw its accomplishment as a sign of early 1970s American television. Double-edged sword. He blurred his role and self. Every time he exited the screen, He was a wounded soul. He remembered his father's words. Son, acting is simply one step above pimping. A curse and psychological sentence. After the Partridge family left in 1974, Danny was haunted long after T15. Life should begin, not when one must figure out how to live. America loved the red-haired lad, but he became outmoded. Hollywood is ruthless. No parts, no hiring, no applause. A child who lived on others' approval was forgotten after Just Danny became a symbol in a world that only loved new in one season. From the brilliant past he was too young to be trapped in, he fell into a profound blackness under the studio lights. The child star had just an old name, magazine images, and bitter memories he couldn't hide. His teens were a swirl of bars, motel rooms, and strangers. Without supervision, Danny burned himself out. A single poison containing medications, hard drinks, and tranquilizers help him forget his violent father and the tiny boy who forced him. America laughed. He wanted numbing, not art, he said. I just needed something that would make me stop missing home. Years later, in an interview, lost himself in the past. Danny lost virtually everything. In the 1980s, Danny Bonaduce was no longer on talent lists, but multiple assault and drug arrests made headlines. Possession, drunk driving, and bar fights in Los Angeles. Another event ensued. The public saw that the Partridge's humorous boy had turned violent and faded to unstable junkie dragged down by celebrity. No one wanted to approach him, and Danny knew it because every time he was escorted he heard others murmur, "That's the kid from TV." In the police station, Danny participated in 1990, hoping life would change. An unusual attempt at anti-drug education in Daytona Beach. Sadly, he was arrested before the program ended. From lecturing against drugs, Danny news spread quickly that he was arrested for his condemnation. Tabloids ran chilly headlines, and millions of admirers who loved the Partridge family was appalled by his gaunt visage, sunken eyes, and forced smile. The youngster who had made them believe in happiness. Another tragedy struck in January 1991, when Danny was detained after assaulting and robbing a transgender sex worker in Phoenix. The media depicted him as nude, afraid, and inebriated when the police arrived, depicting Hollywood's golden child's complete breakdown surrounded by paparazzi. The nation watched as one of its most cherished former stars was handcuffed. After pleading guilty and being convicted, he was no longer recognized as an actor, but as a tabloids headlined, "A man lost in his past." As such, Danny Bonaduce starving, Danny Bonaduce dead, Danny Bonaduce on drugs. This American family name had become a public spectacle. He had no employment, home, or family. Danny lived in his car in the early 1990s, close to the Chinese theater, the icon of his Hollywood dream. He left by day. Everyone laughed with tourists, took photos, and signed autographs by the car that remained the cheery Partridge youngster. By night, he returned to breathed in gasoline from the car and wondered why he was still there living. "The people who asked for my photo," he later remarked, "didn't know were keeping me alive in that car's chilly metal shell in the metropolis that had." But Danny Bonaduce struck rock bottom after worshiping and being abandoned. He realized something in the fumes and loneliness. Celebrity had never taught him that sometimes being remembered, even temporarily, prevents a person from disappearing. Someone he never dreamed would call him at his saddest hour. David Cassidy, the superstar who played his elder brother, would contact him. Sibling in the Partridge family followed Danny's fall in the headlines for years, but didn't contact without sympathy, but to rouse him up. "You're the funniest person I've ever known," David responded calmly. "But right now, you're just a joke." Danny was saved by David's invitation. The tour was strict: no booze, drugs, or women. Cruelty. A final test. Danny consented, and that trip became the first turning point in his long recovery. For the first time in years, he stood on stage sober, steady, and not terrified, with only music and a sibling quietly observing backstage. David introduced Danny to a local after the trip radio station, helping him obtain his first hosting gig. The start of Danny wrote his thank you chapter later and steadily grew better. Stayed sober and found purpose. He often called David his guardian angel, the only one who had seen him authentic self while the world saw failure. Years later, Danny was crushed by David Cassidy's death. Danny wasted time by tattooing David's dying words on his chest. In addition to saying goodbye, It was a reminder that sometimes one person's thanks to David Cassidy. Believing in you can save your life. An unexpected getaway for Danny Bonaduce was not television. Through his voice, he turned to radio, where no one could see the judged face but could only hear it. Honest, caustic, living voice only. This allowed Danny to live without pretending. From Philadelphia to Chicago, Detroit, and other large towns, his voice, once famed for its boyish humor on the Partridge Family, has become rougher, deeper, more knowing, and self-mocking. He was now a storyteller. Not a kid star. He could laugh at himself before anyone else, and the audience liked him for his directness and honesty. Mentioned failure as if representing everybody who had failed. In 1995, Danny was invited to host Danny, later renamed The Danny Bonaduce Show. Each episode featured a discussion or slice of life that a man who had lost everything and guests battling to survive. Hollywood rarely brings daytime TV humor, irony, and humanity that forgives. Though canceled after a year, the show left a mark. Danny finally told his story. He returned to the Partridges in 1999, although not as red-haired boy, but as Come On's producer and creative consultant. The film Get Happy, the Partridge Family story recreated behind the scenes. Danny confronted his past through the 1970s blockbuster series. Some felt he helped the team show strain, loneliness, and sadness the public never saw. His technique of rewriting his history and forgiving the boy he was. Danny transformed the controversies of his enemies to his memoir. Random Acts of a Man long judged made a strong statement in Badness, My Story, early 2000s that others. He printed sensational headlines on the cover that haunted him. Bonaduce dead. Danny Bonaduce was starving and hide. He took them back, converting humiliation into possession. From battered child to brilliant young star to devastated man, public slammer Danny Bonaduce found a new voice. The voice of a survivor. From 2001 to he hosted The Other Half with Dick Clark and Mario Lopez in 2003, attempt a man version of The View, tackling marriage, employment, and Danny saw it as a chance to prove he could. Stern, incisive, and sober. Despite his youth, name was associated with drugs, fighting, and anarchy. Self-deprecating comedy kept viewers coming back, but it ended. After 2 seasons, Danny's quiet victory was the first in years. He appeared on TV as a man mending his life. But Hollywood always finds a way. To VH1 launched Breaking Bonaduce in 2005. That Broken Bonaduce was one of the most frightening reality series of its time. Addiction, fury, breakdowns, and his steady decline were revealed. The viewers saw a man, not the funny Partridge boy. After his second marriage to Gretchen, unraveling on camera. Danny admits to suicidal thoughts and roaming. In response to questions about the performance, he coldly stated, "My show is like a car crash. Though they know it will end horribly, many can't look away." The show ended in 2006, as did his marriage, but that severe exposure may with nothing to conceal. Danny rebuilt himself from the ruins. He left dramatic television in 2007 to focus on radio. Restored his balance. His voice, once wavering, Breaking Bonaduce returned stronger, funnier, and more sincere. A world that never forgets his past. Radio became his refuge. Cameras, no lights, just sound and comprehension. Danny Bonaduce learned grief into stories and renown rubble into a bridge for others who fell. He started his next chapter, quieter yet more stable. Finding stability in Danny Bonaduce's radio career involved more than just restoring a career. It was the first time he tried to love after a terrible childhood. In mid-1980s, he met Satsuko Hattori, a Japanese karate instructor, during a job trip to Los Angeles. Calm, disciplined, and the reverse of Danny's chaotic life. She was unfamiliar with the Partridge Family and was unimpressed by his celebrity and controversies. This may have been the reason Danny felt safe. Finally, he was recognized as a man, not as Hollywood's bad boy. They fell in love instantly, a mix of adoration and rescue. Danny was impulsive and fiery, while Setsuko was calm. She taught him proper breathing and balance. He tried to amuse her. They married in 1985 in a small private ceremony. No reporters or cameras, just 2 individuals who believe love can repair childhood wounds. Initially, Danny appeared to have found his long-awaited home. Past never easily leaves. Danny still struggled with drugs and wild anger, his father's dark inheritance he hated. Setsuko assisted him in recovery, therapy, and meditation. On nights when childhood memories resurfaced, Danny would drink, rage, and wake up with regret. His many apologies had lost their meaning, and love eventually collapsed due to fear. They never had children due to instability and Danny's reluctance to be a father after never having one himself. After 3 years, the marriage ended quietly. Without courts or money disputes, two people tried their best, but learned that love alone cannot restore a shattered soul. After their separation, Setsuko returned to Japan and Danny reverted to his routine, including radio, the stage, and loneliness. Even years later, he still talked respectfully of her in rare interviews. My first teacher taught me that peace is learned, not innate. Of his many mistakes, this marriage may have been one of the few right ones. He wasn't ready to keep it. Following her separation with Setsuko, Danny drifted again. Long nights, odd jobs, short relationships. One evening in late 1990, he accepted a blind date, unanticipated. Gretchen Hilmer, a friendly and energetic teacher and part-time performer, entered. Despite never meeting the Partridge family, she was aware of the fame of the man across from her. She observed someone concealing sorrow with uncomfortable jokes. Perhaps that's why they felt like old friends hours later. On November 4th, 1990, Danny and Gretchen decided to marry. Their decision was not impetuous, but rather a rare moment of certainty. Danny stated, "When I saw her, I knew I'd survived long enough to be loved again." Danny's early marriage was a shining moment in his recovery from addiction. Gretchen was unsung but strong. She coached him on quitting drinking, working out, eating better, and most importantly, fatherhood. Danny refocused on family, radio, and recovering his public image after having 2 children, Dante and Isabella. However, family life with an unstable father was never simple. Despite loving his family, Danny struggled with anxiety and nostalgic memories. When job pressure increased, he reverted to old patterns. Overworking, losing control, apologizing. Gretchen was his wife, mentor, and sobriety guardian for years. After Breaking Bonaduce aired, the world saw her struggles. A guy torn between self-destruction and the longing for love. Their marriage lasted nearly 17 years, exceeding expectations. When they divorced in 2007, there were no allegations, only silence between two exhausted individuals. Gretchen stated in an interview, "I love him, but I can't keep watching him fight himself." Danny recognized that this loss was the only one that truly brought her to her senses. Despite their separation, their friendship remained strong. The couple maintained communication, attended children's events, and spoke respectfully of each other. Despite his failings, Danny remembered his past family. This was something neither fame nor childhood had given him. He saw Gretchen as more than a wife. She demonstrated that great love may inspire individuals to improve, but not always save them. Danny Bonaduce struggled for years to regain a sense of normalcy after his divorce from Gretchen. Every morning, he was on air with his usual quick wit and comedy. Though laughter was present, an emptiness was difficult to fill. At nearly 50, he feared he would never love again until meeting Amy Railsback. She was a young California teacher, over 20 years his junior, and entirely disconnected from Danny's vibrant world. They initially met during a small tape session when Amy, a radio show fan, requested an autograph. Danny asked for coffee instead of a courteous thank you. Their relationship progressed slowly. Unlike his previous impetuous loves, Amy wasn't drawn to Danny's celebrity or worried about his damage. She listened patiently and treated him as a regular person, not a broken star. After decades, Danny finally felt free to be himself. No need to act tough or hide behind jokes. Amy assisted with life organization, scheduling, work management, and health monitoring. She provided a serenity that eventually stabilized his chaotic environment. The couple married in Maui, Hawaii, in a small ceremony with close friends and family in 2010. No lights, reporters, or cameras, just two people who realized true happiness doesn't require an audience. Amy supported Danny throughout the events that followed. He faced challenges such as moving to Seattle for work, undergoing brain surgery in 2023, and retraining walking after losing balance due to hydrocephalus. Amy remained supportive during his worsening health, holding his hand as he left the hospital, adjusting his microphone in their home studio, or calmly listening to him speak. She was often referred to as Danny Bonaduce's last heartbeat, not in music, but in life. Danny gave a straightforward explanation when asked about his third marriage secret. She doesn't alter me. She stays. Danny discovered a reality he thought only existed in movies after a lifetime of storms. Our love is not meant to fix him, but to be with him silently and authentically. Danny Bonaduce had a restless energy outside of the studio and stage, presumably to relieve his childhood emotions. While many former stars sought recognition through music or film in the 1990s, Danny chose martial arts. He competed in amateur boxing and professional wrestling against celebrities like Donny Osmond, Barry Williams, and Jose Canseco. Not just sports. His actions demonstrated his resilience and ability to regulate his body after years of self-destruction. The strikes left more than bruises. In his career, he was constantly assaulted, including with guitars, and once fell in the ring. After initially dismissing the injuries as insignificant, doctors eventually discovered they were the core cause of his hydrocephalus. An accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain is harmful. Danny mused, "I guess I'm just the guy who got hit in the head by too many monkeys and guitars." Fear lurked underneath the laughter, concerned that he may not recover this time. In April 2022, Amy detected a problem. Danny stumbled, slurred, and fell down the stairs. All thought it was a stroke. Nearly 100 doctors examined him. Many tests were conducted, but no result was found. Mid-2022 brought the correct diagnosis. A buildup of fluid on the brain, known as hydrocephalus, can mimic stroke and dementia symptoms. Danny believed he might never be clear-headed again during the long wait for answers. He had surgery in June 2023 to implant a shunt, a tiny tube that drains fluid from his brain to his belly. After the successful surgery, he was able to stand, walk, and speak more clearly within weeks. His health no longer permitted him to maintain his intense pace. Following his retirement from iHeartRadio, he and Amy relocated to Palm Springs for a peaceful, sunny escape from the past. Danny maintained his customary wit in a brief interview. "Now I have plastic tubing flowing through me like a luxury Hollywood plumbing system. I've wasted so much time," he said, softening his tone. "I want to live properly now." Danny Bonaduce chose not to seek plaudits after over 50 years of experiencing intense light and darkness. He sought to breathe, rest, and live like a regular person. Danny Bonaduce, now 66, is relinquishing his role as a noisy, unpredictable American television star and learning to settle down after 50 years of self-exile. He and his wife Amy relocated to Palm Springs, where the soft sun and peaceful mornings aid in his recovery from brain surgery. Located near the desert, their small home features a private studio developed by iHeartRadio, allowing him to reconnect with his old fans anytime he misses his trade. New images on social media reveal a man who has regained his physique, grin, and a rare peace he once lacked. He no longer seeks fame or plans to return to Hollywood. He attends small family reunions, shares his hydrocephalus tale in interviews, and advocates for mental health and brain injury awareness, calling it his legacy. Being an example of survival has importance for Danny without stages or scripts. "I was once the beloved kid," he stated in a 2024 interview. "Eventually, I became the mocked man. I now aim to be someone I can respect." Danny Bonaduce's legacy is defined by his bravest and most public trip, not by prizes or ratings. The story of a child who overcame abuse, addiction, and incarceration and learned to forgive himself. Danny is a testament to the perseverance and pain required to overcome adversity in Hollywood. Danny Bonaduce, the bright red-haired child from the Partridge family, is still remembered for making people laugh. For him, the greatest legacy is not laughter. He is still here to share his story, unlike many others who never had the chance. Danny finds tranquility in Palm Springs, spending his days walking, reading, and reconnecting with friends. After years of celebrity burn, Danny Bonaduce exemplifies the harsh reality of fame's impact on individuals. Greatness isn't always about recognition. It's about surviving once everything else fades away. He overcame his challenges and persevered with the skills Hollywood rarely teaches: tenacity and self-respect. His journey from a beaten boy to a man who learned from his scars is not romanticized. It demonstrates that surviving is a form of victory. If this narrative paused you in the daily routine, Recall those who enriched our childhoods, not only for their light, but also for overcoming gloom. Please like to show respect for the Hollywood kids who experienced pain. Don't forget to subscribe to keep hearing these authentic stories. No miracles, but lots of humanity.